Welcome back to Coffee Break with Candace. We're so glad you're here with us this week. I have another incredible guest, and I'm going to have her introduce herself and tell us more.
Thanks, Candace. I am Kelly Johnson. I am the owner and operator of a junk removal company here in Austin called IREP. IREP stands for I Recycle Everything Possible, because we do a really good job of donating, repurposing, and recycling over 60% of what we pick up. A lot of people ask me, what in the world got you into the junk hauling business? It's definitely a male-dominated industry. I did about 22 years in restaurant management, took a break kind of in the middle to do property management. And while I was a property manager, I dealt with people moving in and out. I managed an apartment complex, then I managed houses and duplexes and fourplexes. And one thing I noticed is that a lot of people just leave a lot of things behind when they move. And whether they're responsible and they actually hire someone to get rid of that stuff, or they just leave it, that stuff a lot of the times just ends up in the landfill. And I was noticing that when I was a property manager, especially for an apartment complex, that the maintenance guys, they need to flip it. They got to get ready for the next tenant. So they would just bag everything up and throw it in the trash. And it really started to bother me. Like, there's got to be a better system for that. So I left the property management business. I went back into the restaurant business because I made more money there, and started bootstrapping to get a truck and a trailer. And I wanted to start an unwanted item removal company. I hate to call it junk because it's not all junk. So I wanted to remove unwanted items and just give them new lives. And so I saved up some money and I bought my first just F-150 with a 12-foot trailer from a friend who was selling it because he was moving to New York and he didn't need it anymore. And I got my foot in the door with some properties by doing grounds work for them. And then slowly just kind of saying, hey, I could get that furniture by your dumpster. And then, hey, if you ever have a tenant leave us a lot of stuff behind, I can do what's called a trash out, and I'll trash it out. And I would separate, and I did this by myself for a little while. And then word of mouth got me more business than I could handle while still a restaurant manager. So I hired a part-timer to help me on his days off, because he also had a full-time restaurant job. So he helped me on his days off, and we worked a lot, restaurant management, as well as junk removal. We did that for several years, and then we got even busier. And then suddenly my mom was in a really bad car accident in September of 2015, and it kind of turned my world upside down. She was in a coma for over a month in the hospital. So in February of 2016, I went full-time with my junk removal business and started putting all my efforts into building that business. And within just a few months, I was able to allow my part-timer to come on full-time. We did that, just the two of us, for a couple years. And then in 2019, I joined a networking organization. And at that point, I needed to hire another full-timer so I could dedicate more time to networking and building my business. So in 2019, I had 2 full-time employees and me. It is now 2021, 2 years later. I have 12 employees. I have 3 box trucks and trailers, and I am about to open another branch of my business in Houston, Texas.
That's incredible. So how did your business grow so much, especially during the pandemic? Because that's amazing, between 2019 and 2021.
It was explosive growth. It was pretty incredible. I have never had to, I was so reactive in hiring and getting more trucks. So being in this networking organization is the first part that started to grow my business pretty significantly. But then the pandemic hit, and it seems like there was so much time between me joining this organization and the pandemic, but it was like 6, 7 months really. So I started noticing an uptick in revenue. And then when the pandemic hit, one of the guys in my networking organization is a lawyer, and he helped me determine from the orders whether or not we were essential, because that was a little tough. Like, I don't know if I can operate technically. And we determined that I could, because I was supporting city services, getting furniture from dumpsters so they could pick up their dumpsters, helping to provide shelter by clearing out apartments and houses so that they could rent it to another tenant. There was a lot of people that were downsizing and kind of merging households, and so we had to help with that. So we were able to operate, luckily. But what happened was everyone got stuck at home for a long period of time and just started cleaning out their houses. And
That's awesome.
oh my gosh, within a couple months of everyone being locked at home, we suddenly got slammed. And so that's when so we were so busy. So I had a little bit of extra money. So I wrapped my truck super professionally. I invested in a second trailer and a second truck. That's when I got my second truck and trailer, was early pandemic. And then we just kept getting, when I wrapped that truck, we started getting jobs from like National Instruments, Kendra Scott, like big names. And so then it was like, I need another truck and I need another driver. And so I was just hiring constantly and training as fast as I could. And so then we got a third truck and trailer, and with 3 wrapped trucks and trailers on the road. And we also picked a really cool blue, and it really pops. My phone was just ringing off the hook. We were so busy. And a lot of it was a lot of people were at home for a year. And so they just constantly started doing new projects, and they needed stuff hauled off. And it got pretty crazy. And then I started getting little people's bugs in my ear saying, you really should open up in Houston. You really should open up in Houston. They need some good junk haulers in Houston. And then the universe just started aligning for me. A really good friend who I worked with in the restaurant business, he manages very similarly to the way I do, very customer service driven, not afraid to get his hands dirty. He was laid off from his job, and he heard I was looking to open a branch in Houston. He lives in Houston. He said, I'm your guy. So that just fell into my lap.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just, I've learned to start listening and watching the signs. And so, yeah, it's just been incredible. And when I say explosive growth, I am not kidding. I kind of got myself out of the day-to-day so I could grow my business, and I had to go right back in and just until I could get people trained and hired. So I went right back in there, getting dirty, hauling junk. I still to this day will fill in whenever we're either too busy or short staffed. I had 2 guys on medical leave at the same time at one point. So yeah, I'm just, and what's great is I'm not afraid to get back in the field at any given point. My teenage daughter is not afraid to get in the field and get dirty. So she'll jump in, she'll help. She's an athlete. So she's probably stronger than I am at this point. She can lift a couch just like these guys can. So.
Oh, that's amazing. Wow.
It's incredible.
No, but it is. I mean, it really is incredible. And so did you ever have any pushback or resistance? You talked about this being a business that is, it tends to be, more male dominated. So was there any pushback for you as a woman?
I didn't get as much as I actually thought I would. There's a lot of local junk haulers here that I have a great relationship with. Vince from Junk Guys, we pass each other our overflow all the time. And but what I will say is, I think some of them get a little irritated because if there is a woman that is accepting bids, I always win. I just always win because women supporting women, so
Absolutely.
yeah. And they will, and the guys will, if the guys hear that I'm bidding on the job, they just give up. They're like, oh, I already know Kelly's gonna get this job because you're a woman and you women support each other. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a good thing. So besides the explosive growth of your business, what has been a surprise about this work and IREP?
one of the things that really shocked me is the things that people just consider trash, like they're willing to pay someone to take it to the landfill. We'll get there and it's great stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, like, why would you just throw this away? It blows my mind. And I'm not a crazy hippie tree hugger, and there's nothing wrong with that, but that's just never been my personality. But I also don't like the thought of waste. So you look at, I came from an industry, the restaurant industry, 22 years of a lot of waste. The restaurant business has a lot of waste. And I switch over to this industry that is just doing everything possible to have no waste, so that was surprising to me. It was also really surprising to me how many people do not understand what it takes to get rid of like bulk items. A lot of people don't understand the costs behind it. And so I'm constantly educating people on, listen, when you say, oh, I'll give you $10 to haul off this mattress, like it's minimum $35 for me to dispose of it. So there are costs, and a lot of people just don't understand it. And then the last thing that I found really interesting, so we charge based on cubic footage. That's just however much space your stuff takes up on our trucks and trailers, that's how we charge. How many people don't understand the concept of how to measure cubic feet? It was like, I understand that not everyone is a math person, totally get that. Most people understand square footage because when you're looking at an apartment or a house, they understand that square footage represents the floor. And so cubic footage is just adding the height to it. But it blows my mind how many people just, they can't grasp that concept. So my sales and marketing guy made a whole video about it. We have a link that we can send people where they can just plug in measurements and it'll tell them. We'll do estimates for people. We'll head out there and measure for that. It's just mind-boggling how many people don't understand that concept at all. And not everyone was good in geometry.
I hated geometry. I'm just gonna say
that's a geometry. But on the flip side of that, when we measure cubic footage, we make it very simple. We just measure length, width, and height, right?
Yes.
But we've actually done some haul offs for some engineers who their piles are more like a cone, and they know how to do the cubic footage of a cone. And it's like this times pi. And I'm just like, okay, now we're getting like really intense.
Yeah. I'm living for that. That is so awesome. Wow.
It's funny. I know it hasn't happened a lot, but the few engineers we've hauled stuff off for, they're like, well, let me tell you the cubic footage I got, because if you take the radius of this circle, and I'm like, oh, okay, we'll go with that.
That's cool. Well, that's cool of you to do that, just to to go with. But that's hilarious. Oh my gosh.
I mean, and all that stuff, when they come at me with that, I was really good in math. I was really good in geometry. So I'm like, yeah, I remember that. Okay, we can use that formula too. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't trying to get this scientific about hauling off some junk, but okay.
Okay, cool. Okay. Yeah. Now, I loved algebra. Like that. Geometry is the only B I ever made in math, because I just didn't enjoy it. I was like, really? Yeah. Algebra, yes. Geometry, no. But that's so cool. And it's cool that you, again, one of the cool things, or there are many cool things about your business, but what I love is the way you meet a need. Like, okay, there's all the stuff people are throwing away that could be recycled, could have a purpose in someone else's life. And then it's like, people don't understand the math, so let's create a video for people to understand, like all these cool things that you've implemented. And then to see what your business has done, and now you're starting, another branch in Houston. It's amazing. It's amazing. How do you keep up with all that? How do you make this life work for you? So,
I will tell you that the one thing that I've learned that has been the most important lesson, probably just in the last 6 months, and it's something that I always knew I wasn't good at, but now I have had to force myself to be good at, and it's delegating. I was awful at delegating because I was just so obsessed with everything being exactly the way I wanted it. I've got a great business coach now, and he forced me to adapt the missions or adopt the mission statement and adapt it into my everyday life. Who can I get to do this for me today? And suddenly my 12 to 13 to 14-hour days came back down to like 10 or 11. It's just trusting people. It's finding the right people first, and then it's trusting them to and hope that you have instilled your mission statement and what we're all striving for, and then just letting it go. I mean, when you delegate, you've got to follow up, but letting people surprise you in a good way.
Absolutely. And how is it that you've been able to find the right people?
People ask me all the time, are you sad that you didn't start this earlier in life? Are you sad that you did 22 years of restaurants and then did this? And I said, no, because let me tell you, the connections I made in 22 years of restaurant management, I was able to handpick people to come work for me. And luckily I was, I'm a little bit different as a junk hauling manager than I was as a restaurant manager. Restaurant management is pretty intense, right? But I was still good enough to my employees and respectful enough that they knew I would treat them right and pay them a livable wage. I was so excited when I was able to offer full benefits to my crew. These guys are working out in 100-degree temperatures, or sometimes pouring rain, or freezing temperatures. And I didn't want them to think that they still couldn't get, health insurance and, all those benefits that come with working really hard. And so luckily, there was a lot of people that worked for me in the restaurant business that I said, okay, my number one thing about hiring people, obviously you have to be able to lift something, right? But before even I consider how strong are you is, how do you deal with people? Do you treat people with kindness, and do you treat them like human beings? I don't want a script. I don't want you to follow a script. I just want you to be human and talk to people and fill their need. And how do you handle conflict with people? That is my number one. And so I have been so blessed in being in the restaurant business and being able to watch that from all these people that worked for me. And then, knowing who can lift a couch with someone else. So I've been able to kind of handpick. And then what's great about that too is, now that I'm growing, I've got people on my team that have other people that, hey, is your company hiring? And they've worked for me long enough, and they'll know whether this person asking is going to be a good fit. They know. And so I've gotten some referrals from my existing team members, and they've worked out amazing.
That's actually amazing too, that even before they get to you, your guys know, your folks know, like we know what's required here. We know what that looks like. So we, just already to have that, that you've instilled in the people that work for you. Like that's, I think that's just so incredible. That's really...
and also, so like if let's say this employee refers this employee may end up working with this person on a regular basis. So this person's got to be able to pull their weight and lift things and stuff, because otherwise it's going to make this person's life so much harder. So I've got one of my employees that so many of his friends want to work for me, and he's like, I won't even give them your contact information because I know they're going to make me look dumb, and they're not going to be any fun to work with because they're not hard workers. So,
wait a minute, I love that.
Yeah, I love that too. I'm like, you're pre-screening these people for me. I love it. So,
that is fabulous. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. That is super awesome. Oh my gosh. And so I have a question, just totally, because I want to know, what's the coolest thing you found in some of the hauls that you've made, the pickups?
Yeah, we get this question a lot, and there's so many cool things that we found. One of the things that all my junk haulers are male, with the exception of my daughter when she jumps in the field, right? But one of the things that they are obsessed over is when they find swords. These guys must have a collection of swords like no other. We find swords so often. That is just something people leave behind. That is the thing that just doesn't.
But why are they buying them in the first place? Like, I'm so confused. You bought them, but then they're not, special enough to take with. Like, that is so. What are you doing with a sword at home?
I know. and some of them are really fancy. I mean, we did a haul recently where this woman had these amazing paintings from all over Europe. Really, really interesting stuff. I mean, the art we find sometimes is pretty incredible.
Wow.
And I mean, whether it's even worth anything or not, but it's just really interesting and unique.
Sure.
But retro, like old school Coca-Cola machines, a lot of
Oh, nice.
I mean, we did a haul one time where we found Star Trek figurines still in the packaging from like when Star Trek from when those figurines first came out. Oh yeah, we come across some gems, some baseball cards that were worth a lot of money. It's pretty cool. And my sustainability team, they go through all that stuff. They research it, they look it up, and if it's worth anything, they'll sell it. And my sustainability team gets a commission off anything that they can liquidate, for any dollar amount. And so, they make sure that they do their due diligence and looking things up and making sure that we're not just gonna donate something that is worth a lot of money, and then a lot of we sell a lot of our stuff online on our resale shop. And then sometimes it's just, okay, this stuff isn't really worth taking the time to put online. So we'll put it all together. We'll have kind of a big like garage sale type thing. And then I'll usually take all that money and take all the employees out to eat for breakfast, lunch, dinner, one of those, whatever they choose. But for the most part, any designer clothes we come across, we will liquidate, but we donate a lot to Hill Country Ministries up in Cedar Park. We try to donate to organizations that are serving a greater purpose in the Austin area.
That's amazing. Wow. And is this something you ever imagined for yourself, this business, this life that you have right now?
Not at all. When I was in high school, I was going to be an actress or a director or something of that nature. And then that travel path somehow always ends up in the restaurant business. And so that's how I ended up in the restaurant business. But I never thought I would be the owner of a junk removal company that's growing and doing great things. But what's really cool about that is a lot of people are like, as a female, I would have never tried to enter that industry. That's a male dominated industry. And I said, well, what's really cool about the fact that I did it and I'm succeeding is that it's showing my daughter that don't let society dictate what you can and can't do. And she is 5'3" and is playing varsity basketball for a 6A high school. And if you told me years ago that, oh, your 5'3" daughter is going to be on the varsity basketball team where height is really important, but she's doing it. And I like to think that maybe in some roundabout way that I've inspired her to just not let society dictate what you can and can't do as a woman,
No, that's incredible. I was actually going to ask you what kind of advice you would give, but I feel like you sort of summed that up, as to not let society dictate.
Right. And also, this is a lot of what I do now is because I learned it the hard way, but I tried to be the junk hauler, the business owner, the tax specialist, the accountant, and I'm not good at any of those other than just running a business and recycling. So I learned the hard way to get the tax professional to do the taxes and to get the bookkeeping professional to do the bookkeeping. I learned all of that the hard way. So I try my hardest to inspire new entrepreneurs. It may seem like, oh, this is so much money to hire professionals to do this, but I promise you, it's going to be more money when you screw all this up.
Oh, that's true. No, that's a really good point.
Yeah, there's a lot of debts I'm going to be paying for a while because of my mistakes. So I just tell people, find that money up front. It's so worth it. And so, yeah, now I've got all those people in my corner helping me fix everything and get it all right. But yeah, that was a rocky road. And I just tell people, find the money to do it. That's my biggest advice.
Sure. And that makes so much sense. And then any final words for us today? I mean, this has been so exciting. This has been such a great and inspiring conversation. And I love what you've done. And and I'm sure at times you had concerns, but you just sound like this fearless, you just jumped in there, you did this. I mean, to see the success, and that's incredible too. And going through the pandemic, how your business, increased. And I mean, it really is amazing.
One thing I will say is I probably won't ever be a millionaire because I am so passionate about taking care of the people that take care of my customers. That's my big thing is just take care of your people. I was in a lot of restaurants where the powers that be just didn't take care of their people and they failed because it's all about money, 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 money. And it's not all about money. I mean, yes, you start a business to make money, but if you don't take care of the people that work for you, when we were shut down during the freeze here in Texas, I paid everyone. I just said, look, I'm going to pay you all for this week because luckily I was in a position to be able to do that. And you know what happens when you do that? These employees, after the freeze, oh, you better believe we were busy. All that stuff that got ruined by burst pipes, we were busy. But you know what? They came back ready to work because I took care of them, during the freeze. And I take care of people. I take care of my customers. All my 5-star reviews, a lot of them mention my name because I'm just very involved. And I am so grateful for the opportunity to come on here and just tell my story. And I hope it inspires women and just entrepreneurs in general. It doesn't have to just be a woman because some men do some pretty incredible things out there that are out of their comfort zones. But I know sometimes, women, we get looked at differently sometimes by the powers that be. So, but I'm just so grateful to be able to share this story and my story and how I ended up hauling junk for a living.
Yeah, no, I love your story. I told you that when we, had our initial conversation, just how amazing your story is, and just a reminder for what we can do if we, put our minds to it. Obviously, a lot of work, but just so worth it. And it's just incredible to see. And I know there will be so many that will be inspired by your story. So thank you for all that you do.